Okay, so the next fallacy in this category of fallacies of presumption is the fallacy of, if I can go forward, false dichotomy. And this one you could probably figure out. Here's an example. Grace says to her parents, either you'll buy me a new car to drive to school, or I'll have to drive this old death trap that is dangerous and could get me killed. So in false dichotomy, either one of the premises presents two options as if there were no other possible options. Okay, so dichotomy, di means two, right? So it's saying that there's two options, but that's false. There could be more. So let's see how this works. So basically, the arguer will set up the argument with one preferred option and an undesirable one. So here's one option, a brand new car, or I'll die because this is a death trap, right? And then obviously the arguer will eliminate the undesirable one. No one wants you to, no one wants their child to die. So then all you're left with is the thing that they wanted in the first place, which was the new car, right? Again, what's wrong with this is there could be a lot of other possibilities, right? And I'm sure you could think of other possibilities. You could buy a used car, you could take the bus, you could carpool with a friend, right? There's a lot of other options. Those aren't the only two. But this is why it works. They set up the option that they want, and then one that's so bad that you're not going to choose it, leaving you only with the thing that they want. Okay. And then the third fallacy in this category is suppressed evidence. And suppressed evidence means that you only look at some of the evidence and you don't look at the rest of it. So when you use evidence to support an argument, that's called inductive reasoning, right? We already talked about that, where you're looking at evidence, you're using it to support an argument. But when you do that, you have to really look at all the evidence in front of you. If you ignore some of it and only focus on a little bit of it, that's called suppressed evidence. So, for example, in this image, this man is on a boat and he says, well, I've only been moving up since we started sinking, right? So he's on the edge, and as it sinks, the boat kind of went like this. So he's moving up. But he's ignoring all this other evidence that the rest of the boat is going down, and there's actually water on the boat and it's actually sinking, right? So the arguer intentionally ignores relevant evidence that outweighs the evidence in the premises, such that we would be led to a different conclusion. Okay, this is also called cherry picking, and I'm sure you're sort of familiar with that term. And this image is describing it. Is the evidence against you? Just ignore the parts you don't like, right? So just ignore the evidence that goes against what you're trying to prove. Just pick the parts that you like or agrees with what you're trying to do, and that's and then that would be an example of cherry picking or suppressed evidence. It's really common in advertising. So it'll say, drink this and lose 20 pounds, right? Ignoring the fact that maybe these people had to do all this other work to lose the 20 pounds. It's also very common when people use passages that are quotes out of context as evidence to support a conclusion. Here's another example. This woman is giving a presentation and she says, out of our 3 program participants, 100% thought we were awesome. And then this person raises their hand and say, what about the 96 families that left after the first week? So there was some program, 99, families, 96 of them left, and the 3 who are left, they love it. So 100% of the people loved it, but they're ignoring the fact that all these other people left already. So for these two, for false dichotomy, just make sure, are there really only 2 alternatives or are there more? And for suppressed evidence, think, is there a lot of other evidence? Especially this is important when someone's making an argument based on surveys or data. Just make sure, like, hey, is this everything that's going on? Is there other information that we need to know in order to figure out whether we agree with your conclusion? So if there are not only 2 alternatives, if evidence has been left out, then you're dealing with a fallacy. On the other hand, if there really are only 2 alternatives and evidence hasn't been left out, then you could be dealing with a legitimate argument. So these are the 3 fallacies in this category, begging the question, false dichotomy, and suppressed evidence. After watching these videos, just take a short quiz to check your understanding of these.